Okay, let's call the meeting to order at 1:33. And we've got Amanda Bishop's going to be at the clerk helm today. And Amanda, could you read the Metro Cable 14 replay statement?
Yes. Good afternoon. In compliance with the directives of the county, state, and Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streamed and closed to the public. In-person attendance by the public will not be permitted. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. Members of the public were encouraged to submit public written comments or video comments electronically. Public comments will be distributed to members of the commission and filed in the meeting record. Written comments will be read during the agenda item that the comment is related to, subject to a 3-minute limitation, except as provided below. If more than 20 written comments are received on any item, the clerk may summarize the general nature of the comments and read a summary into the record. Video submissions will be shown during the meeting, limited to the first 10 video submissions. Video submissions may not exceed 5 minutes in length. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission is cablecast live on the Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse cable system. This meeting is closed caption and will replay on Saturday, June 20th at noon and Sunday, June 21st at 6 p.m. on Metro Cable 14.
Thank you, Amanda. Can we have you take roll call now?
All right. Good afternoon. Bryant? Detrick?
Here.
Hedges?
Here.
Gatewood? Polo?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Riley?
Here.
Middleton?
Here.
Natoli?
Here.
Schmidt?
Here.
Nava?
Here.
And you have a quorum.
Excellent. Scroll down here. Hold on.
Okay. It looks, item number 1 is conference with legal counsel.
Yes, we'd like to move that to the end of the meeting so we don't have to flip-flop back and forth with the phone calls. So if everyone's okay, if the commission's consensus, I'd like to move that to the end of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Harriet, do we need to take a roll call vote on that?
No, there's no.
I don't think so.
Okay, then,
But
Mr. Chair, the chair, I'd like
I
to
think
move that to the end then.
Okay. Item number 2 is fiscal year 2020-21 general fund and PEG fee fund proposed budgets.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Bob Davison, your executive director. And that's not me barking, but
Somebody mute there. Could you please mute your phone?
if everybody can mute their phone unless they want to speak, that would help us out a lot. So I thank you for that.
Is someone on this phone?
So I'm going to present.
Oh, you know what? This is, we're on the other line. This is the closed session line, and we're not doing closed session. We're going to move that to the end of the board meeting. Okay. So there's the same phone number, but there's a different conference ID number.
Excuse us a second. We have a technical difficulty we're addressing. I'll be with you in a moment.
No, actually, we have a board member that dialed into the closed session number, so he's dialing in now to this regular session.
I don't know, but I just heard someone go, "Hello, I'm here." Okay.
So I'll start off with some of the logistics. I'm here to present the fiscal year 2020-2021 proposed budgets for the general fund and the PEG fee fund. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, and given the the teleconference nature of this board meeting, of this commission meeting, I wanted to let the board members know that there are several ways that they can access this PowerPoint presentation. First of all, it was included in part of the package that was emailed to you earlier today. And that's tabulated, so you should be able to find the PowerPoint presentation that way. If you happen to have a television, you can watch this on Metro Cable 14, please with a sound down. The lag on that is not too bad. There's also a link that was sent out to you earlier today to the Metro Cable 14 live streaming. You can simply Google that on the web, Metro 14 live streaming, if you wanted to find that. I'll just warn you, with that mechanism, the lag time I think is supposedly about 30 seconds, so that might be a little bit awkward to watch the presentation that way. I'm also going to try and describe everything that we're talking about, so if you just wanted to listen in, I don't think you'll be missing too much if you didn't have the PowerPoint presentation, but it's probably a good idea to follow. If there's any questions about the PowerPoint or how to access it, I can address that before we move on, and if not, I'll start the presentation.
There was another board member that just joined.
Okay.
Hearing none, I think you should go, Bob.
Okay, and there was another board member that just joined the board meeting, so if we can get an identification of that board member.
Mr. Gatewood, Rancho Cordova City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gatewood. So with that, we'll...
All right, I'm ready. Let's do this.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the budget presentation. So the first slide shows the general fund 94A proposed budget, and it's a budget of roughly $12.6 million. The budget is made up of many components. First of all, there's salaries and benefits of about $1.5 million. Services and supplies are a little bit over $800,000. Channel licensees base funding for the PEG channels that the commission owns is $1.467 million. And then the fiscal year 2021 revenue distribution to the member agencies is proposed at $8.17 million. And then there's also $150,000 proposed to be in the reserves and $15,000 for miscellaneous other expenses. But we're going to go into more detail into these numbers in the following slides. So the first component we want to talk about is administration and regulation. Administration is the enforcement arm of the commission and the administrative arm of the commission, and it provides several core services, including administering the now state-issued cable television state franchises that are in Sacramento County, and there's 3 of them. There's Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T. The administration component, administration arm also assists consumers with resolving cable complaints. Also, the fund supports operations of the 6 PEG channels on the local cable systems. Collects and distributes the franchise fees to the member agencies, and also collects and distributes the PEG fees to fund the PEG projects for 7 member agencies, 4 channel licensees, and Metro Cable 14. And one thing that I'll introduce right now is that we tried to keep the budget as basic as possible. So on the general fund side, we alerted everybody that it was basically going to be a basic budget, just the last year's budget, going off of carryover funds, and implementing the COLA policy for the channel licensee base. But also, for the PEG fund, we have a PEG call for funding. Given the COVID-19 pandemic, it was both on Cable Commission side and as well as the member agencies and channel licensees, with everybody staying at home, it was going to be difficult to do the PEG call for funding. So we have delayed the PEG call for funding to take place between this meeting and the September final budget meeting. So the PEG funding portion, except for a few PEG items that you'll see that are in the PEG budget, the PEG grant requests, the call for funding that goes to all the agencies I spoke of, will be delayed, and we will bring that back in September with the final budget. So our administration staff, we have myself, the executive director. We have 4 authorized full-time positions, an ASO 3, an ASO 1, a confidential senior office specialist, which is vacant now, and a senior office assistant, which is also vacant. We do have a temporary staff helping out with administration as well. In this budget, these positions are aligned with the county, and when the county, Sacramento, gives a COLA, Cable Commission staff gets a COLA. And so in this case, the Cable Commission positions are being, it is proposed that they be given the same COLA as the county staff, which is a 2% COLA for this year. Here are some of the highlights of the administration and regulation budget. There's a CalPERS. It's a trust other than post-employment benefits trust that we pay into, and the commission approved a policy several years ago to pay into this trust to pay for some of the liability related to the benefits other than retirement for Cable Commission employees. We've been doing that for the past several years, and the amount of that for this year is just over $80,000. Within the last couple of years, the commission had a discussion about pension liability, and with the potential sunset of the commission in the relatively near future, staff proposed and the commission board approved that we should start paying down the pension liability, and what was authorized was to start paying down $500,000 a year from now till at least 2024. So with that, we have $500,000 for that component. Also, we have budgeted $100,000 for closed captioning, $200,000 for legal counsel, other professional services, which includes paying the county for using me as executive director, as well as the auditors that we hire and other miscellaneous consultants. That's covered under other professional services. The county DTEC and IT services, which are ingrained with us being housed at the County of Sacramento. It's important to pay that amount, and that's $106,000 this year. There's a request, and I just want to point out that this is item number 3 on today's agenda. It's the COVID-19 Education Rapid Response Request. And for the purposes of the budget, we have included this component in the budget. Certainly, we're going to take item number 3, and nothing that is decided with this budget will constrain the board from deciding what to do with item number 3. And we had to present the budget one way or the other, so we presented the budget this way, including $100,000 for this grant request. However, when the board takes up item number 3 today, and if the board does something different than what's in this budget, then the board will be suggested to take an action to adjust the budget to be compliant with whatever action is taken with item number 3. So, anyway, that was a long explanation to point that out, but I wanted to be clear that that request was assumed here, but certainly whatever happens with item number 3 is the board is not constrained in any way. So with that, the next item is we have $310,000, and it's for prior year audit adjustments. This is actually pretty good news because over the last couple of years, between proposed and final budget, we've had to make some pretty significant changes to our fund balance, and it had to do with the timing of the audit versus the timing of proposed and final budget, where we were surprised to find out some audit adjustments actually produced some impacts on the budget that we had not anticipated. So I think we learned from those experiences, and so we worked with our auditor this year to predict what those audit adjustments might be. And the auditor let us know that it's likely to be about a $310,000 adjustment. So with that, we're putting that adjustment into contingency in proposed budget, and then when we get to final budget, we're not going to have to make such a swing. At least that's the theory here. So anyway, That item is to insulate ourselves from having to respond to a swing in our budgets due to journal vouchers that may be recommended by our auditor. And then finally, consistent with our reserve policy, we're trying to increase the reserve to about $1.5 million. We're not there yet, but we're proposing to add $150,000 to the reserve. And with that, I'll move on to the next slide. So component 2 is closed captioning. And we've had some good success actually this year. We selected a new vendor, and they're Aberdeen, and I think they're a California-based company if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, we did an RFP process last year. We selected them, and they've been providing captioning services since our last budget meeting, basically, and they've really been doing a great job. We've seen a marked improvement in the captioning, both in clarity, appearance, accuracy, and costs. They are actually we're saving a little bit of money from what we were paying our last provider. So we are extremely pleased with our new captioning provider. And thanks to our Metro Cable staff for working with them, and our administrative staff for doing that RFP process and getting that the new captioning provider in. Just want to point out, in calendar year 2019, out of 308 meetings recorded, 267 of those meetings were closed caption. And we would caption every meeting, except there's some meetings that it's not technically feasible to caption. Actually, I will point out that we have not captioned regional transit meetings, but we are working with regional transit on putting in a control room, and when that happens, we will be able to caption regional transit meetings. So there will be more meetings captioned, hopefully, in the near future. And then out of 685 hours of recorded meetings, 587 hours of those meetings were captioned. Component 3 is our Metro Cable staff. Metro Cable is responsible for the local government meetings on Metro Cable 14. This includes the gavel coverage of meetings held by the commissions at 7 member agencies and 14 other agencies. Do want to point out that Metro Cable has been instrumental in assisting with cable casting meetings in the environment that we're all existing in now with the COVID-19. And I also want to appreciate our clerk, Karen Liu, and the help we get from the county clerk's office, because even putting on this teleconference meeting, was quite a challenge because it was so different than our normal meetings. And I think we're lucky, actually. Our first meeting is a couple months into this, so I think we were able to learn from other agencies' mistakes. But anyway. It's certainly, Metro Cable 14 has had to cablecast meetings and has had to be flexible because they are working with different agencies that are using different platforms, doing meetings in different ways. And I think that they've been very, very successful in doing that and in keeping these important meetings, especially during this time, in people's living rooms. So I want to thank Metro Cable staff for that. And certainly in calendar year 2019, they cablecasted 308 meetings. And they also provide assistance to the member agencies with the assessment of the PEG equipment facility needs, which will be part of the discussion at the September meeting. And the Metro Cable staff includes 4 full-time positions: a production director, a programming coordinator, a technical coordinator, a technical assistant, and also several part-time production assistants. And the 2% COLA that we are providing for the admin staff is also recommended to be provided for the Metro Cable staff. Community programming, this is the funding that goes to the entities that operate our PEG channels, including Access Sacramento, KVIE, which is the second local PBS station, the Sacramento Education Cable Consortium, and Capital Public Radio. Did I leave one out, Karen?
I'm sorry, what? No, that's it.
Okay. Per the revised policy that we've applied the past several years, we provide a COLA for the channel licensees, but the COLA includes the general COLA that's applied to staff, the 2%, but also an adjustment to account for the cost of minimum wage increases, and then also an additional adjustment that includes employer payroll costs and other costs related to the minimum wage increase. So with that, the calculation this year provides a 4.52% COLA for the channel licensees operations base. And at this time, I actually do want to point out that there was an error in the staff report. It was a very slight error, but instead of applying a 4.52% COLA, we provided a 4.54% COLA in the staff report that was sent out to the board members. In this PowerPoint, we have corrected those numbers. It didn't make much of a difference, but I just wanted to point out that that those numbers have changed. They were provided in an email to you today, as well as are included in this PowerPoint presentation, and that when you take action on the final budget, we are recommending that you approve the revised resolution and the revised base numbers for the channel licensees. And then we'll remind you of that when you're ready to take your action. The next slide just shows the strictly applying the 4.52% COLA provides a total of $1.467 million to the channel licensees that operate the PEG channels, as well as Capital Public Radio. Component 5 is the revenue distribution. By policy, the franchise fees that the commission takes in, less the money it takes to operate the commission, is distributed at the end of the year to the member agencies based on the Department of Finance numbers for populations. And for fiscal year 1920, the revenue distribution will be $9.78 million. What was budgeted was, actually that's $559,000 greater than the amount budgeted, and what that includes is we budgeted more conservatively than the revenue received, so we received more revenue. And there's also $43,000 and change from an underpayment from AT&T, which was uncovered in the audit. And when we had those audit findings, we let AT&T know that there was that underpayment, and they paid us right away. So we received that revenue, and that will be included in the distribution as well. And then also the proposed revenue distribution for fiscal year 2021 is proposed to be $8.17 million. It's lower than the budgeted revenue distribution for this year, mainly because the audit adjustment previously, I think, reduced the fund balance a bit. Also, we have the $310,000 that we've put aside for the audit adjustment that is going to take place between proposed and final budget. And the declining franchise fees continues to decline, and I have a slide that's going to show you that in just a minute here. And this slide I won't go into detail on, but this just shows the revenue distribution that will be paid in this month, actually just after this meeting, to the member agencies for the fiscal year 1920, and the proposed actual distribution to each member agency for 2021. And I guess I'll mention this now. I know that's in my staff status later, is that if you notice, the population number for the city of Folsom is 81,610. And because the city of Folsom population is now over 80,000, they, by, I think by the JPA requirements, by our ordinance, the city of Folsom will have its own seat on this board. And after this meeting, we'll be notifying the city of Folsom about that. The next chart is just showing you the trend in franchise fees, and for many years, if you actually included a chart that goes back all the way to the 80s, you would see just a continued increase in franchise fees. However, as we've discussed with this board at many times in the past several years, because of other choices out there, like over-the-top internet-provided content. Because of the choice of AT&T to abandon their UVerse platform, which is a franchise fee-paying cable-type platform, they abandoned that. They still have customers on that, but they don't continue to get new customers on that platform. And every time a customer leaves that platform to the other AT&T service, which is over-the-top internet, which does not pay franchise fees, that's led to a significant decline in AT&T franchise fees over the past many years. And also in the past couple of years, we've seen some reductions in the franchise fees that we receive from Comcast. Some of it due to the differences in the way that they've been accounting, and others due maybe to the people leaving the cable platform for their platforms. But with that, you can see that in about 15, 16, the trend started changing, and then we started seeing that significant drop all the way to last year. One thing that I will point out is that I know everybody's talking about COVID-19 and flattening the curve. This curve flattened a little bit in the last fiscal year, which is a good thing for franchise fee revenue. Now, I don't know if we can expect that curve to continue. So in predicting what the revenue is that we're going to receive in 2021, we looked at the relative slope of franchise fees from when this trend started changing, and we're predicting $12 million in cable franchise fee revenue. We hope to get more. We hope that flattened curve that you see in the last fiscal year continues, and that will be nice if we can get a little bit more in franchise fees, but I don't like to be too aggressive in my budgeting and then find out at the end of the year that the member agencies don't get the revenue that they anticipated. So we believe that a guesstimate of $12 million in revenue is a good place for the budget. With that brings us to the PEG fee fund. The PEG fee fund is a little bit easier at this time because like I said before, we've held off on the call for funding for PEG projects. So most of the PEG funding, $3 million, is going into the contingency right now, and we'll come back with the final budget to figure out how that money will be reappropriated and how it will be spent in the next fiscal year. Other than that, we have $711,000 of projects that are still continuing on with some of the member agencies, and so that money needed to stay in the budget or those projects would be impacted. Then there's also some of the channel licensees get their base funding in the PEG fee fund, and so that number is $177 million. We're proposing 115,000. Oh. Yes, I probably, some of the channel licensees out there might have gotten happy with that misstatement, but it's 177,000 and not million, and thank you for that correction. I'm not sure we could have afforded that one. Anyway, 115,000 into the reserve and a contingency of 200,000. And like I said, this will look completely different when we come back to your board in September. The funding has been provided for BestNet and E-rate in the past years. And I just want to point out that the SECC has connected the remaining schools for the BestNet project. So there will be no more BestNet schools connected after this year. And then a memorandum of understanding will be presented to the board at the next or a future meeting that will hopefully come to agreement between SECC, Comcast, and the Cable Commission in regards to the maintenance costs for BestNet and how that continues on into the future. So that will be likely at the next meeting. So with that, that's the presentation on both the general fund and the PEG fund budget. Staff recommends that the board approve the 2021 revised general fund budget, revised to include the updated channel licensee base and the updated budget resolution that was provided to you today, and also the fiscal year 2021 PEG fee fund proposed budget to include resolution number 2021, which is revised now, through 2021 2020-005, and all attachments, exhibits, and agreements included in the budget staff report. And with that,
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Is there any questions for Bob at this time from the commissioners?
Yeah, this is Matt Hedges. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
yes.
I'm curious why you mentioned earlier that we are trying to get our reserves to 1.5 million. I'm curious why that specific number is being chosen.
That number came from a policy that we took back to the board several years ago. I don't have the policy with me, so I can actually certainly email that policy to board members after this meeting. But I think a lot of it had to do with the potential for changes in funding.
The sunsetting in 2024.
The potential sunset in 2024, as well as also potential changes in funding. If there was a precipitous drop in funding during the year, it's money that's available to help bridge that. But that's going off the top of our heads, and so I think the best thing I can do on that is have Karen pull out that policy and email that to board members.
No, you don't. That answers my question. You don't need to send me anything.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Is there any other questions for Bob at this time? Hearing none, we'll open the public comment opportunity. And I understand that we have a DVD that was submitted by SECC that we would like to have played by the technical assistant, Dalen Swenson.
Yes, that's true. Dallin, can you please cue that up and play that video, please? Submitted by SECC.
Executive Director of the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium, and I wanted to share some positive and uplifting experiences that we've had in these challenging times. First and foremost, thank you and your staff for your support over the past years. You are one of the linchpins of an incredible team consisting of students, families, teachers, and educational administrators. Educational Cable, SEVA Labs, and SECC production and collaboration infrastructure have been vital to looking at and dealing with life in a new and positive way. Our schools closed on a Friday. By midweek, SECC had modified both educational channels 15 and 16 to focus on curriculum-based, credit, and non-credit programs for home use. We shared resources from all Sacramento school districts on our district resource page. SECC special interest groups, from PIOs to SEVA teachers to the directors of technology and family engagement folks, continued to meet and share their best practices via Zoom. During the first week, the really exciting stuff started. Students and families began to respond to the Share Your Story initiative. SEVA students utilized their media skills to produce programs about their experiences in this historical time, many of them airing on cable. Many SEVA labs continued their weekly broadcasts from home.
Good morning, Barrett families. My name is Riley, and I will be your host this week. Today is Wednesday, April 1st.
SECC and its SEVA teachers accepted the challenge of the first ever virtual SEVA award night. Canceling the 2020 SEVAs was not an option for us. We even held a virtual red carpet. The event celebrated the largest participation in SEVA history, over 600 entries.
Are we live? Hello, SEVA students, teachers, and families. Welcome to the SEVA Award Night pre-show celebration, a virtual experience.
Come on down, walk down the red carpet. Check that out, their own red carpet for the SEVA Awards tonight. Awesome. Are you excited to try to win one of these? Woo! SEVA!
Welcome to the SEVA! Welcome to the 31st Annual Award Night Celebration. I'm Nabil Lemma, back with you after a week of celebrating more than 600 SEVA 2020 entries. You know we're doing this stuff a bit differently this year, keeping our social distancing and still connecting with you all throughout the past week.
you have to have the skill of making a video, just because that sort of lays your message out there and you can be able to publicly express problems, solutions that your community may be facing.
Judges awarded an honorable mention to Florence Markoffer. Producers, Emily Robertson, Madison.
We're all stuck at home and I'm doing my best. Really though, any one of you could be having your acceptance speech being played right now.
Hold on 1 second. One last wardrobe change to finish up the evening. Wow, what a night.
We are well into our most recent challenge, virtual graduations and promotions. We're airing more than 100 of them on cable 15 and 16 from every district. SECC, many of our SEVA labs, teachers, and students have helped with production and editing.
It's what we do for each other that makes the biggest difference. If you can view the world through the lens of another, you will go far, because each one of you matters. Each one of you will make a difference, and it is your choice what kind of difference that is. Class of 2020, we are proud of you. Congratulations on this momentous accomplishment. I am honored to celebrate this special moment with you.
We did it, but we are still at the top of this mountain, and we will not let this pandemic stop us from celebrating all our hard work and accomplishments.
The long-standing tradition of graduates past, present, and future by moving your tassel from the right side of your cap to the left side.
Here you go. Congratulations.
Please let me know if you have questions here virtually. My email and contact information is listed on the SECC handout that you have. Be safe and know that we appreciate the leadership you are providing for our community. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, that was good. Go ahead. That was a great video. Make sure that the SECC team knows how much we appreciate all the hard work they do and what they're able to give the students across the region. Do we have anyone else who is signed up for public comment?
Not at this time, but I wanted to mention that Liz Rose submitted also a written report related to this video, which was forwarded to our board right before this meeting. And on the side note, I wanted to make sure, I want to commend my ASO1 Mary, who worked tirelessly side by side with me to get this meeting up and going, and as well as Bob Davison, who was on standby via teleconferencing or teleworking, getting this final for the board today. And one more last thank you to Amanda Bishop for stepping in and clerking this meeting for me.
Oh, that's great. So is we just going to file as part of our public comment Liz's report?
So,
that was a question.
This requires a vote.
We still need to take a vote on the budget, correct?
Yeah.
So-
Correct.
Yeah, no, I was asking if Liz's report was just something going to be added to the record, or was there something that needed to be read into the record?
No, it will be added to the record.
So what we...
Okay, thank you. So,
To
what I need is a motion to approve the revised resolution number 2020-001, adopting the fiscal year 2020-21 proposed general fund 094A budget, and resolution number 2020-002, adopting the fiscal year 2020-21 proposed paid fee fund 094B budget, to include the following documents that were included in the staff report. So do I have a motion?
I motion. This is Matt Hedges.
I have a motion from Hedges. Is there a second?
I second. This is Portia Middleton.
I have a motion from Hedges, second by Portia. Do you want to do a roll call vote, Amanda, please?
Yes. Bryant? Detrick?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Gatewood?
Yes.
Polo?
Yes.
Reed?
Aye.
Riley?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Natoli?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Nava?
Yes.
All right, motion passes with those members present.
Perfect, thank you. We'll go to the next item, please.
Item number 3 is COVID-19 Education Rapid Response Proposal, Atrium 916.
Hello again, Bob Davison, Executive Director. This item is a budget request that we received from the Office of Mayor Steinberg and Commission Board members Eric Guerra and Steve Hansen. And it's in coordination with Atrium 916, which is a media-related nonprofit corporation, and Unleashed Productions, which is a for-profit video production company. The proposal is related to the current COVID-19 pandemic, and funding is being sought for local artists to earn some income while unable to work during COVID-19. So the proposal is for these artists to work with the city to create short-form enrichment media educational content from local artists, makers, and creators. The content will be prepared in bundles, and it will be shown on Access Sacramento, and can also be shown on the Commission's other PEG channels, including KVIE, SECC, and Metro Cable 14. The artists would be paid per second for the content, and it's at a rate of $120 per minute, and it's assumed that the average content that would be prepared would be 5 minutes, so I'm sure some would be a little longer and some would be a little shorter. It's expected with the Commission's grant that 100 projects could move forward with the funding requested here. So the request is for $100,000. The proposed spending of the $100,000 is $25,000 for the infrastructure to procure the content and to pay the artist, $60,000 as direct payment to artists, $12,000 for insurance and other necessary items, and then $3,000 for marketing and promotional materials. Now, staff did have a lot of questions on this proposal, and we include, I'm not going to read each question and answer, but we did include that information in your staff report. We did meet with a team, including Sarah Polo and representatives from Darrell Steinberg's and Eric Hansen's office to discuss the particulars of this proposal. We actually asked for a revised proposal, and the group did send in a revised proposal, which is the proposal that's before you today. A couple of items that were discussed was the proposal of greater benefit to the city of Sacramento than the other member agencies. And the response we got was that, well, it is a city program, but the artists are from all over the area, not just the city of Sacramento, and that the content would be shown on the PEG channels, which certainly is available to all the member agencies in all the territory in the cities and the county of Sacramento. We, at one time, it seemed like that the content was only available to Access Sacramento, so we asked and got that question answered, that it's certainly that there was no problem with making that content available to any of the other PEG channels that the Commission owns. Now, this is not the typical request that usually we're dealing with PEG requests, but Certainly during these times, I don't know if anything is typical. And I do want to point out, and I think it's on rare occasions, but the Commission Board in the past has provided funding for certain member agencies asking for a video production request. There was a $10,000 request from the County of Sacramento related to the production of a sheriff's video. And that was in 2015 that the board approved. And there was also a member agency video production request that was requested and approved in around 2010, 2011. So it's not unheard of, but like I said, it's relatively rare to get this kind of request. But given the pandemic, given that the content would be shown on the PEG channels and is available, and given that there will be artists that are eligible to utilize, to participate in the program that are from all over the county of Sacramento and the cities within the county, staff is recommending approval. But the other question we asked that I didn't mention was that we asked if there was any other money involved in this, whether there was any city money involved, because we felt that it was predominantly a city program. And the answer we got was that there is a budget request going into the city that's not approved yet, but it should be considered by the city in June. And it was a request in about the same amount, a $100,000 request. And whether that was coming from city monies or CARES Act money, I'm not exactly certain. But we were told that there would be a city money request. And with that, staff is recommending that the board approve the COVID-19 Education Rapid Response Proposal, subject to the following requirements: that they approve an amount up to $100,000, but only to the extent that the city of Sacramento provides for and procures matching funds on a dollar-for-dollar basis. And also that the grant is subject to execution of an agreement between Atrium and the Commission, or a memorandum of understanding between the Commission and the City of Sacramento, approved by the Commission Legal Counsel and executed by the Executive Director, that is consistent with the terms set forth in this report and the attached proposal. So with that, if there's, are there any?
At the end of your, so are there any additional questions from Bob at this time?
This is Sarah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm hoping to get the agenda item amended to remove the city match requirement. The reason why is while this rapid response for local artists program or proposal was an idea that originated out of the city, it is a proposal for the commission specifically so we can get additional artists outside of the city limit. You guys will have seen that there were several public comments submitted via email from artists all over. We had Natomas, we had Citrus Heights, we had Arden area. I was on several calls with Atrium that Atrium had organized that had artists also from Elk Grove, Folsom, unincorporated areas of the county. My concern is if we attach this proposal, make it contingent with city funds only, so we'd only allow the proposal to pass contingent on the city passing the dollar-for-dollar match, that we will essentially potentially not have it happen or have it significantly delayed. I can't control the city process. I can tell you that there's a lot of significant interest at the city, including the mayor, Councilmember Hanson, Councilmember Guerra, and others that have indicated strong desire to get the $100,000 allocated from the city, and it would be out of the CARES Act funding approval and allocation process. But I think we need to get started on the Cable Commission proposal right away and not have delays caused by the contingency measure with the city. We've got a lot of artists outside of the city, like I said, that are needing desperate help for income. I mean, even $200, $100 here, $200 there could really go a long way with helping with groceries, helping with rent, helping pay other bills. And the commission has a much wider reach. And also there's the whole enrichment component to it that is I think, a great benefit to the area and to our communities. A lot of distance learning enrichment content does not include this unique creative element from local artists like pottery, sewing, learning the two-step, guitar lessons. There's a lot of things that I think just from a creative standpoint, kids and families can get a lot out of. So I wanted to add that comment in there. I just have some concerns with the way that this agenda item has been written, and that it's only contingent on the city passing the dollar-for-dollar match. We do think it's going to pass, but I would hate to delay this larger outreach effort for our local artists.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions for Bob at this time?
Yeah, I have a Howard Schmidt question. Does Atrium pick the artists out of this grant program?
They do, but all artists in the county, the greater Sacramento area region, can submit. Anybody can submit, but yes, Atrium will be helping filter the content.
Also, I have a question in terms of why can't the individual jurisdictions just pursue this arts program on their own? Why do you need to involve the commission? I mean, if you express the point that the city is very interested, the city could do theirs, the county could do theirs, the individual separate cities could do the same. I don't know why we need to wrap up the commission on this.
So all the individual jurisdictions and the county absolutely can do that. We would welcome them to do that. But with the educational enrichment component for distance learning and being able to leverage the PEG channels and public educational access, which the commission does oversee, we saw a good opportunity here to help our local creatives while also enriching content for educational purposes.
Okay, any other questions for Bob at this time?
This is Matt Hedges. I have a question for Bob. Near the end of your report, you mentioned, you quoted and you said, this is predominantly a city program. Why did you say that, and what did you mean?
So the program is actually the city staff working with Atrium and Unleashed Productions. So that is why I said it was predominantly a city program. I did point out that the artists did not need to be from the city of Sacramento, and that the content would be shown throughout the all the member agencies. So just to clarify my remarks, because the program is actually a program that would be housed in and ran by the city with Atrium and Unleashed Productions.
Thank you. I've got a question for Commissioner Paulo. Are you trying to amend the agenda right now? Are you putting forward a motion for that?
Yes, I would like to. Well, first off, I want to answer Bob's comment on the city aspect of that. Yes, this said it originated with the city. The idea behind it, the program behind it, had originated with the city and having city staff administrate it. But with the Cable Commission proposal, it will be actually administrated by Atrium, working with the PEG channels that are under Cable Commission's purview. So it will not be a city program. This specific $100,000 proposal is for the Cable Commission only. It is not through the city of Sacramento. And I am asking for a motion to amend the agenda so that item 3 is not attached to city dollars. I do think, like I said, that the city will pass a matching measure, but I can't say when that is, and I can't say it for certain, and it will not be funding for the entire county area for the artists all throughout the county.
So this is Harriet. It's possible that you can amend the recommendation now, but you might want to wait until after public comment, and then the recommendation is only a recommendation, and the board can make whatever motion they want within the scope, which could include deleting the matching obligation or not, as the board desires. So you might want to wait until after public comment to debate whether you want to change the recommendation and then what you want to do with respect to the recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with that, Harriet. If there's no more direct questions of Bob at this time.
I have a question. This is Lisa Nava. I have a question, maybe it's for Sarah. I'm wondering, was the original intent of the program, was it envisioned that the budget would be $200,000? Is that where we got this city throwing in $100 and cable commission throwing in $100? And then the second one is, I think the city already did their budget, so I'm wondering at what time do you think the city will take this up? I mean, is it another CARES hearing you guys are doing, or what's the hang up with the city's action?
Oh, no problem. The funding for the local artists at the city level will be taken up at a separate council meeting that has to do with the $20 million in City CARES Act funding, as well as allocation. I believe $5 million has already been set aside, but they're working to secure another $15 million. So that would be a separate discussion, and the $100,000 for the match with the city, that would, again, only cover city artists, not the larger county, would be part of that separate city council discussion that is expected in June.
Okay, thank you.
In the original, yes, the original discussions, there wasn't a specific dollar amount at the beginning, but it was in the $100,000 range. And when we all got to talking, we realized that there were a lot of artists outside of the city of Sacramento that needed help. And with the educational component, we came up with the Cable Commission proposal for $100,000.
Okay. So if the city does their $100,000 and this is limited to within the city boundaries, does that mean the Cable Commission's money can then be only used outside of that boundary?
The Cable Commission could be used for any of the artists that submit content throughout the greater Sacramento area, which also includes the city.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to also quickly add that working with each individual jurisdiction would also be an extreme burden where we can support the entire county through the Cable Commission. I know I've said that a few times, but I just wanted to kind of summarize that point.
Okay. Any more questions for Bob or Sarah? Hearing none, we'll open public comment. And since in-person attendance by the public is not permitted due to the COVID-19, comments submitted by the public will be read into the record. Amanda, could you read the statement received related to the proposal?
Yes. So just to let the commission know, there was 22 public comments that came in on this item, and they are all in support. And it's actually the same letter, just signed by different people. So I am going to read just one of the letters into the record. For agenda item number 3, COVID-19 Education Rapid Response Proposal, Atrium 916. The creative community has been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this program could make a huge difference for creatives throughout Sacramento County and all communities and the commission represents. Being paid to create high-quality educational content from within the confines of my home is also a great addition to the enrichment content available that will make an impact far into the future as schools figure out how to create hybrid learning environments. If my work is chosen, I could earn roughly $600. That is rent, groceries, childcare, or bills that I am having a hard time paying right now. This program will allow me to inspire young minds and help our educational partners through these difficult times. I urge you to vote in favor of this program, as I know it would help me and many of my local creatives.
Thank you, Amanda. Could either Bob or Karen possibly let me know where the genesis of this email distribution for these basically canned emails that were sent out? Where does anybody know how those email addresses were given out to whoever orchestrated this?
The Cable Commission did not give out board member email addresses to anybody that has provided a comment on this item, as far as I know. Karen, do you know anything different?
The fact that I don't believe staff or the Cable Commission was copied, it was just sent directly to our board members. And one of our board members, Lisa Nava, was good enough to say, to forward it to us. It's like she noticed, I guess, we weren't copied on this.
Right, and then we also discussed it with Sarah Paulo, and then she
went ahead,
emailed the
right,
comments to us
and
as
added
well.
us to it. So overall, 22 were received in total as of 5 p.m. last night.
Sarah, do you know how this email list got distributed?
I believe Atrium helped funnel the advocacy effort.
But do you know where the...
I'll just add, wouldn't Atrium benefit from this grant since they're the administrator?
I believe, it's my understanding that it's a straight pass-through with licensing fees involved that would be paid to the artist.
So one of the reasons I'm asking this was sent to my personal email. So somebody gave out my personal email, which, to be honest with you, one, I find that a little bit offensive. And second is, anytime I've seen orchestrated canned emails where somebody just is able to take what somebody else put together and just forward it, does not hold a very much value to me personally. I understand that we have received some videos related to this proposal. If we can get Dalen to queue up those videos, I'd appreciate that.
Dallin, can you please queue up those videos and play them, please? I believe there's 4 submitted at this time.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm an abstract artist that lives in Midtown. Hi, my name is Ashley, and I'm an abstract artist that lives in Midtown, Sacramento. I wanted to share that creativity is probably one of the most important things to me in the world and for people to have access to. So, utilizing skills of being creative to help facilitate growth in others and not only, capital generation, but creative production is always super important. So I think that this is something that can help everybody.
I think it's a good idea to spend some money on helping artists make how-to videos. And I have a quick little video on how to make chalk paint. So you can start with any kind of paint. This is a house paint. You can use inside or outside. And what you want to do is you want to pour some out, and then you want to make your plaster of Paris that you're going to mix with the paint. First, you want to mix it separately. So you want to put just a little bit of it out, use some warm water, mix that up. You want kind of the consistency of a little bit thicker than milk. And once you have that going, you might want to add just a little bit more. Now there is a shelf life to this. Just to let you know, I've had some sit for a couple months. It came back and there was mold growing on top. So you don't want to mix up too much at one time. So then you pour this into the paint. You want to have kind of a 50-50 consistency. Keep mixing that. You want to make sure it's all thoroughly mixed. Otherwise it will start to harden before you're done using it all. So make sure that's thoroughly fixed. Make sure you have that 50-50 consistency. We kind of have just kind of a little bit thicker than milk. Do you see that? And now you're ready to paint. Be sure to watch my next video on what we will be painting on. Bye.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Boatwright, and I live here in Sacramento, actually just right over in Oak Park. I'm a Sac State graduate as well, local creative, and I think it's really important that everyone, not only do we help the creatives, but the creatives can really help the community. We can always learn from each other, such as this little tidbit. The most American thing that we can have is the crazy quilt. No other country has it, and it was actually started by settlers who didn't really have too much fabric to patch or to make new items from, so they kept fixing the blanket and fixing it until it just created its own identity. And then the Victorians really took off. And Victorian, by the way, not just English, it's an overall thing, so we in America had our own.
Hi, my name is Troy Smith. I'm a creative out in Sacramento, California, Art and Arcade area. I have many creative skills that I feel that are able to be shared, and this platform gives me an opportunity to allow those skills to not only create capital, but to help the next generation succeed and set themselves up for success. Definitely looking forward to learning more of what you guys have to offer, as well as how I can be of service. Thank you. Have a great day.
I believe that was all the videos, Chair Detrick, that was submitted.
Okay, is there any more public comment? Hearing none, we'll close the public opportunity and open for the board deliberation. And I'm going to take the opportunity to chime in first on this. First of all, as I mentioned, the orchestrated canned email, I actually find rather offensive. And then second, using personal emails that were released to third parties, I believe somebody from the commission had to do, not the commission itself, but I would assume one of the board members must have been the person who did that. And, I think that's wrong in many ways. And then lastly, I think this is a slippery slope to go down. I think every city in the county has opportunities to bring items forward that could benefit potentially the region, but I think it's a slippery slope on which ones you pick and choose to fund. I see that the city of Sacramento is going to get $3.7 million in their allocation from the commission, and then whatever additional money they're going to get from the CARES Act as well. I think this is something that is being put together by the city of Sacramento, and they can champion it all the way on their own dime without reaching out to the outside jurisdictions, in my opinion. And I'll open it up to any other board members at this time.
Chair, this is Matt Reed. I'll take the opportunity to go. Alternate for Steve Hansen from the City of Sacramento. I want to thank Commissioner Sarah for taking the lead on this. I understand Chair Detrick's concerns on regarding communication. I think one thing is I don't necessarily know that a lot of folks are used to advocating before this commission, so I hope that we could extend them a little bit of room to make mistakes about how to advocate before this commission. I know that I don't think that there was ill intent in any of the communication that was sent out, but understand and hear your concerns. Nevertheless, I think one thing that I really appreciate about the proposal is that it, the city is putting forward an administrative framework and really wanting to put together the work to do something that benefits everyone who's watching, the Pig Channel assets, as well as artists from around the region. Now it's not just purely a city program or function. I don't think that that's an accurate characterization. I think we wanted to put something together, and it's difficult under the Brown Act to do something, bring something before this board that everyone has worked on. So I think that I really commend the commissioner. I'm happy to support the motion when it's made, and just appreciate the hard work of both the staff for working with the commissioner and Sarah as well.
Any other commissioners? So if there's no other deliberation by any other commissioners, we have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to pass agenda item 3. This is Sarah Polomill.
Did you want to do that with your modification?
Yes, sorry, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to pass agenda item 3 with the change or the amendment to remove the city match section of the proposal.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Reed. I want to ask if, Sarah, if this would be something you could take as a friendly. I think that there was a discussion about making it clear that there needs to be an agreement. I think that it'd be perfectly reasonable to have that agreement between, to to accommodate that concern from the staff and to have that agreement be, even between the city or Atrium and the commission. Would you accept that as part of your motion?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So that's my second.
Can I have that previous speaker just now identify himself, please?
Oh, this is Commissioner Matt Reed.
Okay. Matt Reed? Okay, thank you.
Karen, did you get the motion? I did not get Matt Reed's amendment to the motion. I know it's related to the agreement. Can we confirm what that amendment to the motion was?
I believe that the $100,000 match from the city of Sacramento be removed, but then the caveats, the agreement will be between the city of Sacramento, Atrium 916, and the Cable Commission.
And all three?
Yes.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense.
I wasn't proposing that it be a three-party agreement. I think probably Atrium makes the most sense between Atrium and the commission.
We have some loud noise coming into the chamber. I'll ask anybody who's not speaking to mute their phone. Maybe that will help it, but we can't hear the board members right now with that noise. It seemed to have stopped, so let's try that again.
I turned the volume down.
Sorry.
Can I clarify one thing, Commissioner Reed, and then maybe this will be easier? I took, so what I think is Ms. Polo's motion deleted, with respect to the first bullet, Ms. Polo's motion deleted, but only to the extent that the city of Sacramento provides matching funds. So the motion was to approve the $100,000. And your motion, I think, in clarification, was to make sure that the second bullet from the staff report is still in the motion, which is that the grant is subject to the execution of an agreement between Atrium 916 and the commission, approved by legal counsel and the executive director, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
So Sarah, are you amenable to that? And Matt, are you agreeing to that as well?
Yes.
Yes.
And Matt? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Amanda, can you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Bryant? Detrick?
No.
Hedges?
No.
Gatewood?
Yes.
Polo?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Riley?
Yes.
Middleton?
No.
Natoli?
Aye.
Schmidt?
No.
Nava? Lisa? Nava?
Sorry about that, yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, motion carries with Detrick, Hedges, Middleton, and Schmidt voting no.
Okay, next item. Congratulations, Sarah.
Item number 4 is resolution number 2020-006, approving the 10th Amendment to the License and Operations Agreement pertaining to the use of community programming channels.
Good afternoon. Again, this is Bob Davison. This is the annual operation and license agreement for the channel licensees to operate the PEG channels other than Metro Cable 14, which is run by the Cable Commission. So with that, I recommend that the board adopt the resolution approving the 10th Amendment to the license and operations agreements pertaining to the use of community programming channels.
Okay, so we'll open public comment. Is there any public comment on file, Amanda?
No.
Okay, we'll close public comment. Any deliberation from the board? Okay, can I have a motion to approve resolution number 2020006?
So moved by Natoli.
Second by Middleton.
Motion by Natoli, second by Middleton. All those in favor, can you have Amanda, please, take a roll call vote?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Bryant? Detrick?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Gatewood?
Yes.
Polo?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Riley? Middleton?
Yes.
Natoli?
I thought I just voted aye. Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
And Nava?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did we get Keaton Riley's response? Vote, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries with those members present.
I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on with the sound, whether it's a Metro cable issue or whether it's with the phones, but.
Can we ask board members to mute their phones if they are not speaking, please? Thank you.
Amanda, can we get the next item, please?
Yes. Item number 5, review of franchise and PEG fees remitted by AT&T Inc. for calendar years 2018 and 19.
Good afternoon, Bob Davison again. As is customary with all the cable companies that pay franchise fees to the commission, we do biannual audits of the franchise fee and revenue and the PEG revenue. And in this case, we audited AT&T for the calendar years 2018, 2019. And we did have some findings. Basically, our auditors, who are OSPA and Skolko, in their opinion, there was an underpayment from AT&T, and I'll just give the total of $52,572. After the audit was prepared, we did send a bill to AT&T, which they promptly paid, and we've received money. And I think I mentioned earlier in the budget item today that that was included in the revenue distribution that we're sending out to member agencies this month. So with that, it's recommended that the board receive and file the review of franchise and PEG fees paid by AT&T to the commission for calendar years 2018 and 2019.
Thanks, Bob, and it's a nice change that we have funds remitted to us without twisting somebody's arm. So I'll open public comment. Amanda, do we have any public comment on this?
No public comment.
Okay, I'll close public comment, and this is a receive and file. So can we have the next item, please?
Yes, item number 6, calendar year 2020 investment policy for the pooled investment fund.
Good afternoon, Bob Davison again. Because the commission monies are held with the County of Sacramento, it's a requirement of the County of Sacramento that we receive and file the 2020 investment policy for the pooled investment fund. So with that, I recommend that your board receive and file the County of Sacramento 2020 investment policy for the pooled investment fund.
Thank you, Bob. It's been received, and we can file it. And let's go to the next item.
All right. Your next item is item number 7, chair and vice chair election.
And for this item, I leave it to the board and for the chair to help determine the 2020-21 chair and vice chair.
Okay. Let's open it up to the board, and probably would make the most sense to get a vote for the chair. Do we have a motion for a proposed chair for next year?
I nominate Chair Detrick.
We have a motion by Hedges for Detrick. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Schmidt. I'll second.
We have a motion and second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yep. Commissioner Bryant? Detrick?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Gatewood?
Yep.
Polo?
Yes.
Reed?
Aye.
Riley?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Natoli?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Nava?
Yes.
Motion carries with those members present.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your support, not only for this coming year, but for the years past as well. And we'll move on to the vice chair, and I'll make a motion for Matt Hedges. Is there a second?
Second by Middleton.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, Amanda?
Yep. Bryant? Detrick?
Yes.
Hedges?
Yes.
Gatewood?
Yep.
Polo?
Yes.
Reed?
Aye.
Riley?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Natoli?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Nava?
Yes.
And the motion carries with those members present.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations, Matt. Next item.
Item number 8 is your general admission report.
Good afternoon again, Bob Davison, and I have actually several items, and I'll try to go through them as quickly as I can. We have 10 items here. The first item is the AT&T Custom PEG Solution Settlement Agreement, and basically extending the agreement to provide 4 more years. And just quickly, there was a disagreement with AT&T several years ago when they implemented their UVerse system. They put all of the PEG channels on channel 99. They were very, very hard to find. So it was part of a lawsuit that with the City of El Segundo, the Cable Commission, and the City or County of Los Angeles, that lawsuit was settled, and part of the settlement was on Channel 14 is a custom PEG solution that the PEG channels for the Cable Commission would appear in a menu on Channel 14, and so that's been implemented since that lawsuit, and it would expire this year if it was not extended. And so AT&T agreed to an extension, and so at least for 4 more years, that custom PEG channel on channel 14 will exist on the AT&T UVerse system. So that's item number 1. If there's no questions on that, I'll move on to item number 2. So item number 2 is the FCC in-kind proceeding. Harriet will probably come in and discuss some of the legal issues here, but I just wanted to give a quick update. This is just to remind your commission, this is the proceeding where the FCC approved regulations that would allow them to that would allow cable company to deduct in-kind provisions of facilities and services from their franchise fees. And an example would be if there's a fiber line that benefits the commission and they've been providing that for free, the cable companies can turn around now and come up with their own value for that, and they could deduct it. Anyway, this has been the subject of many commission board meetings, so I'm not going to go into deep on it. But one thing that I will tell the board is that we've been writing many letters to our local assembly, House of Representatives and Senators and weren't getting a lot of traction. So we resent letters to the local representatives, and this time, though, we did get some traction from Senator Feinstein's office. Shortly after we sent the letters out, and we sent a letter to Senator Feinstein, we got a correspondence back from them that they were interested in meeting with us. So Harriet Steiner and I believe it was in January, took a train down to San Francisco, and we met with Jim Lazarus, who is the state director for Senator Feinstein. And we went down there, we had a meeting, we explained the in-kind proceeding. We also explained some proposed legislation that's been proposed by Senator Markey that would basically protect the benefits consistent with the Cable Act and cable franchising principles since 1984 by amending the Communications Act of 1934 to modify the definition of franchise fee. And with that would that would actually protect the franchise fees from the actions from what the FCC has prepared regulations for, and also has future proposed regulations that could impact franchise fees as well. Anyway, after that meeting, and I must say, Harriet Steiner did a great job of explaining this issue to Mr. Lazarus. It was quite a meeting. But after that meeting, we received word from Senator Feinstein's office that she was going to co-sponsor that bill. So that was a good success, and I appreciate Harriet's help on that. And with that, we want to continue the effort to work with our local House and senators. And we had a little bit of a pause in there because shortly after we received word that we got the co-sponsorship from Senator Feinstein, the COVID pandemic hit, and with a lot of people staying at home and a lot of elected officials, working on the pandemic issues, was the time wasn't right, I would say, to continue that effort. So that effort was put on hold, but after this meeting, we're going to reinvigorate the effort to contact the other remaining House of Representative members and senators and try to get their sponsorship of that bill as well, and their the sponsorship of that bill as well. Anyway, with that, I'll see if Harriet has anything she would like to add to my comments.
No, I think Bob and I were a dynamic duo when we went to Senator Feinstein's office, and we were very glad to see that she was signing on. We did approach Senator Harris that same day, but have not got anything back from her office, so we will, I think, reach out again, as well as our congressional folks from our area, and see if we can get more people to put their names on the bills as co-sponsors.
Okay. So anyway, unless there's any questions on that item, I'll move on to item number 4, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And this is just simply letting the Commission Board know that I signed a policy that was basically required by law to participate in the, based on the U.S. House of Representatives who passed H.R. 6201, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It basically requires that employees are able to use emergency paid sick leave if they're unable to work for a variety of reasons that are related to the coronavirus pandemic. And this basically allows full-time employees, they're entitled to 80 hours of this emergency paid sick leave. And I believe also allows part-time workers to get some emergency paid sick leave as well. And then also included in this is Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act. Cable Commission, because of its size, does not participate in Family Medical Leave Act, but the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act does require participation by the Cable Commission. So this is simply to inform you that I signed that policy to make that available to Cable Commission staff. With that, I'll move on to the next one, which is another policy that I signed that was based on law. The law requires employers to have, this is a lactation accommodation policy, and the law requires that employers provide breaks, provide an adequate space, provide refrigerated storage, and a process for requesting notification related to lactation. And so with that, we've signed that policy and certainly are very supportive of our employees and are very willing to accommodate any lactation needs in that regard. So with that, I just want to make the board aware that that policy was signed. The next item is an agreement that I signed for $41,000 with CPS Human Resources Consultant Services. This is to complete a classification and comp study that we had worked on before. If you recall, we hired a firm many, many years ago to prepare such a study. Unfortunately, that study didn't go anywhere. It didn't produce results that we could use. So we moved on to another firm, CPS Consultants. That firm did prepare the classification part of that study, and we were working on the compensation part of that study. However, we got some preliminary results that that basically were not matching commission positions to the adequate positions. So with that, we took a pause in that study. Unfortunately, staff that we were working with moved on, and so we took a time out on that study. But recently, we reapproached CPS. And we've discussed the need to complete the classification portion of that study and do the comp portion of that study. And so that agreement was signed. I believe I informed the board at previous meetings that I was intending on doing that. So if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to the next item. Item number 7. So the Cable Commission is based upon the JPA agreement and the ordinances adopted by the member agencies is to sunset in 2024. Now, depending on what the commission does, the commission may or may not sunset in 2024, but now is the time to start addressing the commission sunset. So what we are proposing is that between now and September, the commission staff will meet internally to review options and bring a discussion and options back to the board at the September board meeting. And that likely could include a effort to engage with maybe the city managers of the member agencies, and possibly to convene a subcommittee that could include members of this board. Anyway, I just wanted to let the commission know that the sunset in 2024 is getting closer and closer, and that it's important to proactively address that sunset before we get to the sunset. So with that, between now and the next meeting, myself, Karen, and Harriet and her firm will be working on options to bring back to the board at the September board meeting. Are there any questions on that item? Okay. Not hearing any questions, we'll move on to item number 8, which I did, I guess I kind of blew the surprise during the budget meeting and pointed out that with the city of Folsom being over 80,000, in fact, the population being over 81,000, that the city of Folsom will be able to have their own seat on this commission board. And so we will be notifying the city of Folsom that they may select a representatives to start sitting on this board. It's effective July, but our next meeting is September. So at the September board meeting, we should have a city of Folsom board member on the board, and then that would mean that the cities of Galta and Rancho Cordova will be sharing the seat for the cities that are less than the population of 80,000. And if there's no questions on that, I'll move on to item.
I do have a question. This is Matt Hedges. Do we have any? Do we know how close Rancho Cordova is? Because it's that'll be a nice prospect when all the agencies have a seat on the board.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the question. Maybe can you talk a little bit slower?
Sure. Do we know when Rancho Cordova is expected to get a permanent seat on the board?
It might be after this one because we're pretty dang close to being at 80,000 or so.
Yes, I believe that was Mr. Gatewood, and I believe that he is correct. In our budget item today, we report the population of Rancho Cordova as 78,381. So I would imagine that next January 1st, we may be having the same conversation about Rancho Cordova, and which, by the way, would give Galt by default their own seat as well when that happens.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we were looking at the population last time. It was 78,000, and we just did the next census. And we built another 1,000, 1,500 homes. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be at that number this next time.
I would agree with that assessment.
Thank you. Bob, does that create any challenges for the dais?
Does that present challenges for the meeting time, I think he said.
Could you say that again? I could not hear you.
So my question is, if we're going to have several additional bodies, do we have enough space up at the dais?
Oh, that's certainly a good question. And now during the pandemic, I would say no. So if the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, then we certainly will have to address that with virtual meetings or some other social distancing spacing to make sure that we can seat our board. But under normal times, yes, we have and our clerk probably knows this better than I do, but the sanitation district and other boards have more members than we have, correct?
They have 17 members.
Yes. So I don't think we'll be above 17. So I think we will be able to handle that in the board chambers.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Don Natoli. We have a SAFCC meeting that started a few minutes ago. I just want to know, do you need a quorum for the closed session?
No, we do not.
Okay, because
We're not getting any action at the closed session.
Okay, because I'm going to have to leave you. I don't know. I assume they may have a quorum there, but I committed to be there at 3 o'clock, so I'm going to leave the phone call and depart. So, okay.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If there's no other questions for Bob, we can go to the next item.
Well, so I'm still on agenda item 8 and item number 9. The Metro Cable.
Sorry about that, Bob.
No, that's fine. It's the Metro Cable YouTube page, the replay of local government agency meetings, and I'll just let everybody know that board member Hedges contacted me it's been several months now. Sorry, we're getting some noise that's making it a little bit difficult. Could we remind board members to mute their phones or devices? Okay, it sounds good now. Anyway, board member Hedges contacted me about whether there was one place where local meetings, especially the ones that are Cablecast and Metro Cable, are available on demand. And, the answer was there was a way to get those meetings, but they were all in separate places. That at the separate member agencies and the Cable Commission and other entities were responsible for their own meetings. And his suggestion was that we should explore some sort of on-demand, possibly a YouTube-based page where local meetings from all the agencies could be housed. So Mr. Hedges suggested that, also suggested to Chair Detrick that we bring that to the next meeting as an agenda item. Well, rather than just bring that as an agenda item, I did confer with my staff, and some of my staff had already considered such possibilities. And so rather than just bring an item to you to get direction from your board to create such a page, I want to thank our Metro Cable staff, especially Doug Bigham, for, we actually prepared a YouTube page, which is available now. So if you go to YouTube and you search Metro Cable 14, and you must include the number 14, or apparently you won't be able to find it. But if you do that, you will be able to get to the Cable Commission's or the Metro Cable 14's YouTube page. And we are now including all of the meetings that we cablecast and some of the past meetings. And we're not going back that far because that would be a lot of work. But we are including them. There's if you go to the YouTube page, there's a page for all the different entities, the member agencies, and then there's a non-member agency page as well. So anyway, we've got this YouTube site up and running. We plan to continue to keep it up to date. In fact, the day after every meeting, we're going to try and have that meeting available on this YouTube page. And then the only other thing I'll say, I believe I thanked Doug enough, but really props to Doug for getting that set up, and thanks to Matt Hedges for proposing that and also requesting that we get that going. Also, we did contact the clerks of all the member agencies to ask for permission. It wasn't required that we get permission legally, but we felt it was a good idea, and most of the clerks got back to us, and so we got permission from most of the agencies. The ones that didn't give us permission, we are going to assume by their silence that they have given us their permission. So with that, we've got this YouTube page up and running, and with that, I'll see if there's any questions on that item.
Great idea, and glad that you and your team took the initiative, Bob, to move that forward. And Matt, thanks for kind of prompting the reminder to drive this.
Yeah, this is Matt Hedges. Thank you, everybody. It looks really nice now, and it's very intuitive to click through. So I really appreciate the work that was put into it.
Sure, and thank you for lighting the fire, because sometimes if you don't get the questions, you don't move forward with something, and it was not that hard of a lift, and so we appreciate that direction, and I'm glad that our staff, especially with Doug's help, were able to deliver that. And just a reminder, one other thing I'll say on that is we have 67 likes, and apparently if you get more than 100, it helps us a lot to get a permanent page. With all of these board members, family members, kids, or whoever, request that they like the Metro Cable 14 page, because if we get over 100 likes, it apparently helps us. I'm not that savvy on social media, so I can't explain to you why, but just like the Metro Cable 14 page, please. Okay, so with that commercial, I'll go to item number 10, and this is the remaining quarterly meetings for 2020, and we will have a meeting in September, and we will have a meeting in December, correct?
That's September 3rd and December 3rd of the year.
Okay, so...
Bob, can I have you maybe go back to item number 3, because I think that was maybe overlooked.
Which item?
Item number 3, please.
Oh, yeah, I missed that item. So item number 3 is the Cable Commission's COVID-19 response. And I just wanted to let the board know that with COVID-19, a lot of people certainly stayed at home because of what the Cable Commission does and because of what Metro Cable 14 does. We deemed our staff to be essential, and I'm proud of our staff for working through the pandemic, continuing to cablecast albeit in a lot of different means, but continuing to cablecast the meetings. We did have to address the social distancing. Our Cable Commission staff, a lot of the work was done by telecommuting because the corridors are close, and so we could not have all of our staff on hand at the same time. Through social distancing, through disinfecting and making sure that sanitizers and wipes are available at all of our locations, including the control rooms at all of the member agencies and other entities that we cablecast for, we've been able to continue to provide our essential services. I will point out that our production assistants, we usually have 2 at a control room at a meeting, and during the pandemic and given the close quarters of a control room, we are running meetings with 1 production assistant during these times. Anyway, with that, I think our response to the COVID-19 pandemic was a good balance of continuing to provide the essential services while protecting our staff and working with all the areas that we work in, and trying to provide for the right social distancing and other means of keeping everybody safe. And I also want to point out that now that we've moved to Stage 3 in Sacramento County, myself, Karen Liu, and Kristen Riggs of Metro Cable 14 will be working on a return-to-work plan and a COVID protection plan that will allow for us to continue these services at Stage 3 while protecting our staff and others that we interact with. So anyway, thank you, Karen, for pointing out that I bypassed that item. And are there any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, well, that's the all 10 items that I wanted to discuss in staff status. It might be a record for the number of items in staff status, so I appreciate your patience on that. And with that, let's go to the next item.
Thank you, Bob. Amanda, can you read statements submitted by the channel licensees since person attendance is not permitted due to the COVID-19?
Yes. All right, so I have 3 letters that I'll be reading. The first one is from Gary Martin, Executive Director, Access Sacramento. Please accept our extreme thanks on behalf of Access Sacramento Board of Directors, the staff, and all of the community members who share their voices on our 2 cable channels and our cablecast radio operation. We appreciate the ongoing and consistent support from the Cable Commission and its staff, and recognize in these troubling times the heavy demands on all who provide services to the Commission from the SMCTC office. Like many businesses, Access Sacramento staff has been providing its services from home since mid-March, and only now are we beginning to provide some office availability for members who prefer to drop off programming or to pay for memberships in person. Access Sacramento has been working on a phased approach to reopening and providing in-person services. We are following the requirements of the City of Sacramento for our space in our Coloma Community Center, along with the health recommendations from Sacramento Public Health Office and the state and federal rules for keeping our staff and members safe and healthy. We can report our on-air automation equipment for both Channel 17 and 18 was forced into replacement through an insurance claim in January 2020 after a catastrophic water damage incident over our master control space. City of Sacramento plumbers said rusty, contaminated water that had been gathering in a roof pile since before Access Sacramento moved into the Coloma Center in the mid-1980s suddenly gave away, dropping 30 to 40 gallons of water onto the master control racks. The insurance company said the equipment was a total loss. With the help of loaned equipment and advice from both Liz Rhodes and staff and the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium and Kristen Riggs at Metro 14, we're back on the air in less than a week. More than 60,000 videos collected over decades were recovered to the video server from backup storage. The tragic water disaster occurred during a live game of the weekend basketball doubleheader, taking us off the air and temporarily shutting down both remote and TV studio operations while the City of Sacramento Environmental Health Office tested the water in master control, the TV studio, and connected spaces. Luckily, no health issues were found. As a personal note, I am ever grateful to the staff of Access Sacramento who responded to the incident. I was on personal time off related to death of my mother, and the smooth response to this disaster and move towards recovery was a credit to all of them. In recent months, since the coronavirus pandemic, much of our current original programming actually has benefited from the force upgraded to our television automation and playback equipment. This technology allows us to broadcast live with social media content that is created either by Access Sacramento or by its members. Our live wire television show remains on the air with this capacity, as well as the live daily news updates by California Governor Gavin Newsom from the Office of Emergency Services. Other live programs supporting Sacramento County during the pandemic include creative writing for kids from 916 Inc. and a 10-week summertime virtual arts program called Fun from Home from California Arts Council grantee IMBA SACC. The new technology also allows us to take our original broadcasts and to simulcast them on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. We suspect Game of the Week viewership will even be higher because of the connectivity. A weekly show called Corona Chronicles from our 2019-20 Channel 17 series Provider of the Year, V. Ellis, documents the stories of area residents, artists, food specialists, and performers who share their voices on our channels every week. As we move forward, we're also delighted to be able to work with Emerge 916 for the arts program being proposed at SMCTC, and know it will align with our own California Arts Council grant for 2021 surrounding documenting more than a dozen artists in City of Sacramento's Creative Edge program. In the 2021 year, we offer our support to the Cable Commission as it advances its own plans to combat the FCC's third report and order in court, and with information to elected leaders. And we also encourage your support of the Community Television Protection Act as it advances in Congress during the upcoming months. It has been a complex start to 2020 for everyone, with our water damage, the COVID-19 pandemic, civil unrest connected to the death of George Floyd, the protests here in Sacramento with the curfew and development of National Guard, and the calls for justice by so many, including Black Lives Matter Sacramento. We at Access Sacramento recognize our important capacity in helping local residents to share their free speech voices. We embrace and support the healthy decisions that are taking place. It is a time when no one can remain silent, and we are committed to helping all residents of Sacramento County be heard. We continue making a difference one voice at a time. Thank you again for your support. Stay safe, stay healthy. Sincerely, Gary Martin. Okay. Number 2 is from Shirley Tooley, Chief Development and Brand Officer from Cap Radio. We are grateful for the grant support from SMCTC over the past 2 decades. Your steady funding has helped Cap Radio provide relevant local content for the greater Sacramento region and beyond. SMCTC's support also allows us to provide 24-hour music programming with virtually all of it produced locally. Our anchor news programs from NPR, such as Morning Edition and All Things Considered, are staffed by Cap Radio hosts and anchors, bringing a local perspective to national news reports. Insight with Beth Rueck underwent a thorough refinement process in the last year, allowing us to deliver a more in-depth yet more efficiently produced show. These are just a few examples of how the support of SMCTC has helped Cap Radio grow, innovate, and become more responsive to our audience. The emergence of COVID-19 forced Cap Radio to transition the majority of its staff to work remotely with only a skeleton crew of essential staff, such as producers and hosts working on site. We've essentially transitioned to 24/7 news operation, with our journalists covering what is likely to be the biggest story of our lifetime in innovative ways. At the same time, our music staff is bringing another sense of connection to our audience through the medium of music discovery, and we're working with local artists to share local virtual performances both on air and digitally. In closing, we thank SMCTC for consistent annual support of our mission, allowing us to serve our audiences in deeper and more meaningful ways, especially in these times. And the last one that I have is from David Lowe, KVIE. When the stay-at-home order was issued, KVIE responded by airing at-home learning programming connected to California state standards and online educational resources on KVIE2, the channel directly funded by SMCTC. Right before the order, we produced a special studio Sacramento with Congressman Dr. Ami Bera and county health officials Dr. Peter Bielenson to educate us all more on COVID-19. Following the order, as KVIE employees who could work from home began doing so. We have been producing new shows weekly through distant production methods for both Studio Sacramento and Rob on the Road, who is now Rob at Home, to connect us with our other community members and organizations to hear how they are moving forward. Thank you, as always, for your support of PBS KVIE so we can provide everyone in our community and beyond with the information that is educational and inspiring for everyone in our community, from preschoolers to seniors and everyone in between. And that concludes the statements to be read.
Thank you, Amanda. You had some long ones in there, but there's some good content, and appreciate everything that Access Sacramento, Capital Public Radio, and KVIE do for our community. Next item.
State franchise. Oh wait, I just did that one. Sorry. Public comment? No.
State franchise.
Oh, state franchise. Sorry. State.
It's okay.
Yes. State franchise reports.
Yeah, do you have open public comment, and do you have any statements to read?
No.
From the state franchisee? Okay. So I guess we're going to return to item number 1, conference with legal counsel, which was deferred, so the board members are going to have to dial into the separate Skype meeting. So we'll announce the adjournment of the regular session and go on to closed session.
Okay, and you might note that we are not anticipating any public announcement. So, if anybody's listening in, there isn't really a good reason to listen in until we adjourn out of closed session.
Yeah, we'll have nothing to report out.
Right, and can we also just double check from the clerks that we have no comments, no public comments on the closed session items?
Okay, Amanda, do we have any public comment that has come in for the closed session?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll hang up on this call and recall in on the new closed session number.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
We are live again, and then the last item on the agenda is public comments.
And I have not received any public comments.
And then we'll go to item 11. And do we have any public comments?
No, there's been no public comments submitted.
So I don't think we need to read the statement since there's no audience. We'll open and close public comment and adjourn the meeting at 3:58.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you need from me?
Thank you, Chair Detrick.
We will forward the resolutions to you once we've updated with the votes, and then either drop off at your office or mail to you, depending on your preference.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care, bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.